this time, we have Mr. Brian Hill with us, who is with the Community Development Partner. And Madam Secretary, if you would, let the record show that Commissioner Davis is present at 3:07 p.m.
I'll say our secretary's present.
Okay.
Would you like to be secretary?
No, you didn't.
It was unanimous. Unanimous.
Not me. Not me. Can't do it.
I guess at this time, we do have Brian Hill with us with the Community Development Partners to present a 10-year plan regarding parks. This time we will.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. So the state of Tennessee provides a lot of funding for parks and recreation every year through a number of sources that they team with federal resources, like the Parks and Recreation Fund through the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. Now, over the last number of years, the state was starting to see that they were investing in some parks that were either not being well utilized or not being well taken care of. And so they started asking communities to develop a Parks and Recreation master plan to assess the strongest needs and desires in the community and to assess the ability of the community to care for their parks. So starting in 2019, it became a requirement for any community that wants to pursue a Parks and Recreation grant through the state to have a Parks and Recreation master plan in place that does just that, assesses the community's needs and its ability to take care of those parks. Community Development Partners. I'm with Community Development Partners, and we have over the last 30 years helped communities develop parks, trails, infrastructure, transportation, roads. And we do this through a number of grant sources, but this has been our sort of bread and butter for the last 30 years. I am a certified planner, so I help communities generate plans for their future needs. And so this is where I came in to help you all with this. And we have a long relationship with many communities in the area in how to, what their needs are and how they want to develop as communities. And that's sort of how we were hired to come in and do this process. And I have actually led over a dozen, almost a couple dozen of these parks and recreation plans all over the state. So I have a lot of experience in what these need to include, what they should look like, and how they can best benefit the communities that they're created for. So feel free to interrupt me if you have any specific questions. This is obviously a picture here from here in Hawkins County there, right along the Holston River. So ultimately, what we need to do with this plan lays out what the condition of your existing parks are, what future parks might look like, and sort of a cost estimate for how to develop those parks. And it includes a pretty in-depth assessment. So I won't go through all of this today, but the plans will be available publicly. There will also be printed copies available for each of the communities that participated, which in this case, it was not every jurisdiction in Hawkins County. It was Hawkins County, Churchill, and Rogersville. The other communities decided not to participate at this time. I'm sure they'll probably want to participate later. Ultimately, we collected over 600 surveys from the community at large to try to understand some of their greatest recreational needs and priorities. And then we created a plan for how to meet those needs and priorities. And so that's what this plan is all about. So we looked at a number of things, including existing plans in the area through the East Tennessee Development District, the outdoor master plan created by the Northeast Tennessee Regional Economic Partnership. We looked at demographics and trends in Hawkins County, what's changing, what the needs of that changing population might look like. We looked at the accessibility of parks to various demographic groups throughout Churchill and Rogersville. And we ultimately engaged the community through both the surveys and through public workshops that were held in Rogersville and Church Hill. And so, ultimately, what it comes down to is a series of priorities and recommendations, and I'll go straight to that part. But before I do, while I'm scrolling there, I kind of want to give you an idea of what we're asking from you today. So ultimately, as I mentioned, these parks and recreation plans need to be adopted by the communities in order for them to be eligible for parks and recreation funding. So later this year, when parks and recreation grants are available, you all can apply for, each of the jurisdictions that participated in this process can apply for parks and recreation funding for parks and recreation projects if they have adopted the plan. The plan must be separately adopted by both Hawkins County, Rogersville, and Church Hill. So what we are asking from you today is to adopt this plan or to recommend the adoption of this plan to the county commission. And let me get down here to the part that maybe is most interesting to this body, and that is the recommendations and cost estimates. So a lot of this is background about parks and recreation in the region. You have the priorities, which is essentially assesses, how we made the recommendations of the plan, what process we used. We had surveys, we had public workshops, we did interviews with staff, we did site evaluations, we looked at other communities, similar communities, using benchmark research, and we looked at national trends, and all of those helped us identify the various needs in the communities, whether that's for trails and greenways, which seem to be very popular, pickleball courts, pools and splash pads are obviously in high demand, programming areas, access to rivers, updated restrooms, so you can see sort of how we made the recommendations that we made. And so ultimately, this is where the rubber hits the road. We look at what are the high priority improvements at your parks, which for Hawkins County includes, of course, Laurel Run Park and St. Clair Park, which are the two parks that the county operates and owns. And there are a series of recommendations there, including a series of recommendations for access and parking, for improvements to the tennis court and basketball courts. The tennis courts, of course, are recommended to be at least turned into some are recommended to be turned into pickleball courts. Some could be partial pickleball courts where you have retractable nets. Trail improvements, campgrounds, and then for St. Clair Park, you're looking at mostly some access improvements. Again, the tennis courts turned into pickleball courts, and then some improvements to the ball field. And ultimately, I want to go ahead and zip down here and get to the concepts for these two parks. So here we have the concept for Laurel Run Park, where eventually, you have access and parking improvements. You have an eventual camping area here. You have paved and striped parking over here by the playgrounds. You have resurfaced tennis and basketball courts. Again, you could have a retractable net here so that you can be playing pickleball or tennis on these courts. Access and trail improvements. Wayfinding, I know, is a big one. So ultimately, talking with leadership in the community, we decided, we thought, what are the most important items, and these are the items that we need to make sure go into that high priority bucket. And so ultimately, the way that this plan works is that you all can draw anything from these high priority improvements during your next application round. So rather than saying, this is the thing that's going to happen first, and then this next thing happens, and then this next thing happens, we wanted to make this plan flexible. So we put everything into two buckets, high priority and low priority. And essentially, you can just draw from those high priority buckets to make, pickleball improvements, to do parking and access improvements at the parks, to do trail improvements. So that's kind of how that works. And similarly, at St. Clair Park, you have these high priority improvements, which include, again, some pickleball development, upgrading the concessions and restroom area, access improvements, and so replacing playground equipment. So you have these high priority improvements that you can pull from any of these during your next funding round. Talking with the mayor and others in Hawkins County, it looks like sort of the next round of funding would likely be used at Laurel Run Park, again, to do a series of those improvements. So that's kind of what we're looking at for this plan. And then there are similarly recommended improvements, both high and low, for Rogersville and Church Hill, and those have their own concept plans and cost estimates as well. So this plan is one plan that incorporates all three jurisdictions, but each jurisdiction has their own funding sources. You vote on your own projects. So the only parts that apply to you all in this plan are the parts that relate to the county itself. Now, I should have mentioned this at the beginning. This plan is aspirational. Any project that you all want to work on using Parks and Recreation funding from the state needs to be in this plan as mandated by the state. However, having it in the plan does not require that you do it. You're not required to spend any of this money, but having it in the plan allows you to go after grants to develop this stuff, and not just those through the state. There are going to be other sources of grants that are going to look more favorably on you because you have a plan. So going back up here to the county, what you're looking at here is about $125,000 of high priority improvements at St. Clair Park, and about $800,000 in high priority improvements at Laurel Run Park. Again, these can be developed in a phased process, so it can, those don't have to happen all at once. And in fact, the funding agency likes to see these projects phased out over time. They like to fund projects that way. I know that talking with the county, some of the highest level priority projects for this next round were potentially a bridge, a suspended bridge to access the waterfall at Laurel Run Park, which I know is an attraction both for local residents as well as people coming to visit the community, and providing a new sign and some wayfinding for the trails there at the park. So I know that that's kind of a high priority item there. But again, we've provided all of those improvements as a high priority bucket and a low priority bucket for each park. So you have a lot of flexibility in deciding what you want to pursue with your grant application. We also included here a series of funding sources which can be used to pursue some of these parks and recreation improvements, which of course include those through the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, which are the local Parks and Recreation Fund and the Recreational Trails Program. There are also a couple through that are managed by TDOT, multimodal access grants and transportation alternative program grants. Those have to be funded through TDOT, and are primarily for trails and pathways as they relate to Parks and Rec. And then through the Department of Health, there's the Healthy Active Built Environment grants and Project Diabetes grants. Other sources, of course, you can utilize for the cities. They can utilize Tennessee Municipal League bonds. There's USDA rural development loans and grants. User fees could potentially be used at the parks, and capital outlays are also always an option. Does anybody have any questions at this point? This is a lot to digest, and if you haven't been following along with this process has been ongoing for about the last 9 months. Again, there was a heavy amount of public involvement that occurred over that period, including hundreds of surveys, public workshops. We've been out looking at all of your parks. We've been talking with the community. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
Hi, I have a question about the bridge access to the waterfall. This Trails and Pathways grant, would that apply for the bridge?
Yes.
And how much is that upcoming grant going to be?
The RTP grant, are you talking about the Recreational Trails Program?
Yes.
So the recreational trails program, the way that the funding agency, the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, the way that they're doing it now is they're actually lumping all their funding sources together. So they just have one grant application for the local Parks and Recreation Fund, the Recreational Trails Program, and the Land and Water Conservation Fund. Now, the Recreational Trails Program is a favorable grant because it's an 80-20 grant versus the local Parks and Recreation Fund, which is a 50-50 grant. The downside is that the Recreational Trails Program maxes out at $200,000. So you can only go after a $200,000 grant with a, whatever that would be, a $40,000 match.
What did you estimate our bridge?
Let's look real quick.
I'm sorry.
No, these are good questions. These are very good questions. I just don't have that off the top of my head.
Where will the bridge be at, sir?
It's the last creek before you get to the waterfall. There's no walkway. If the river is high or the creek is high, you have to wade through the creek to get over there. Now, if there's not a lot of water, there's large rock that you can step on.
So we're estimating that at around $14,000 with with contingencies, but keep in mind these cost estimates here are planning level cost estimates, so that they could be off, and they oftentimes are, but they should give you an order of magnitude.
So is that for a suspended bridge?
That would probably not be a suspended bridge. That would probably be more of a constructed footbridge. A suspended bridge could be a little
actually
bit
talked to
more.
an engineer on that, and when we looked at it, it was going to be somewhere in the neighborhood around somewhere between about 75 to
That's what I was
80,000.
Yeah, no, that's probably more accurate. I think.
Because of where it's at down
Yeah.
steep peak.
And we just learned actually during the process that it would have to be a suspended bridge. So these cost estimates should probably be amended to as such to reflect that amount. But yeah, that sounds about right. So you could easily go after a suspended bridge as well as a wayfinding system, a new sign, a wayfinding system at the park there, and be under that maximum amount for the Recreational Trails Program grant, which again is an 80-20 grant, so it's a more favorable from a match perspective.
What did you estimate the wayfinding project for?
Looks like we've only estimated that around 5,000.
Okay,
So
so we're talking about $80,000. If we could get an 80-20 grant to take care of both.
yeah, I would round that up. I would just because these things oftentimes end up costing a little bit more than you expect. For planning purposes, which all of this is for planning purposes, you're not giving these cost estimates to anyone for construction. You'd have to have an engineer come in and actually evaluate a project before it goes to construction. But I would round it up to 100 just to be safe. So you'd be looking at a $20,000 match for that.
And could ARPA funds be used for that match?
I believe so. Now, there are contingencies in specific cases where they might not be able to be used for match. And I will say, if you are going after a Recreational Trails Program grant, that might be one of the few cases where it would not be, because the Recreational Trails Program is actually funded is actually a federal grant that is routed through the State Department. And because it's federal, that would kind of be using federal funding to match federal funding. So they may or may not allow that. We don't know that. I don't have that specific information in front of me, but you can in general use it for parks and recreation development. I mean, with the latest ruling under the ARPA grants, they can be used for deferred costs. And so that can be, parks and recreation is certainly seen as a service, a public service that was a potential deferred cost under over the last couple of years. And so that would certainly be an eligible project from that standpoint.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll make sure a couple of those numbers get adjusted there, as we discussed. I think that those were a little bit low there. But ultimately, again, these are for your use for planning purposes, so that you understand the ballpark you're looking at. Again, you know, we just need to get this recommended to the commission for them to adopt. They would adopt that at the April 25th commission meeting, and then you would be fully eligible to pursue Parks and Recreation funding when it comes out. We don't know when that's going to come out. Under the app, on average, it's usually come out in April, but that's obviously not going to be happening this year, and we're not entirely surprised by that, just because of the process has been, I think, somewhat extended by the amount of resources that are going through that funding agency now. But we do expect that it will be out this year. Normally, those grants come out every 2 years. The last one was in 2020, so there should be a grant around this year that you all should be eligible to pursue.
Is that it?
That's all I have. And again, this is in draft format. This is a draft that you'd be recommending for them to adopt. We'll probably be reviewing this with the funding agency to see if there are any minor changes that they would like to see. This is there would only be minor changes, and you know, we can adjust some of those cost estimates a little bit, but nothing in terms of the substance of the plan will change. It's all been driven by the public process. So.
What will you have for us to give the full commission before making the decision to adopt the 10-year plan? Will you have the?
We will have
pass out?
We will have the printed copies.
Okay.
So I spoke with you a couple months ago when you were here.
Yep.
As you know, the county and the city own parks on the south side of Clinch Mountain, or about a dozen. But on the north side of Clinch Mountain, from near Hancock County line to almost Treadway, there's not a park or any kind of recreation for those folks over there. And I spoke with some of them, and they have a area that would probably make a small park, probably an acre or maybe a little more, with a little stream running by it. It's located along Highway 70 on that side of the mountain. Now, if we could get some funding to purchase some land, I get a application from Blue Cross, mostly in late summer, that they give out grants to build parks, small and all different sizes. It just depends on what size you're looking for and the amount of land. But to apply for that grant, you have to have the land already purchased.
Right, you have to own the land.
Yeah.
That is correct. So you would be looking to potentially purchase that land using this grant program? Is that
Well, that's what I'm asking you, yeah.
That's possible, but it needs to be in this plan. So you'll need to get me that information. We can scooch that in here towards the end. It actually wouldn't be scooched in because this plan already does discuss the need for, the desire of the community for parks in the northern portion of the county. I know that within the cities, there are also locations where there are additional parks needed for providing equitable access. But we don't have a specific land targeted, and we don't have a cost estimate in here because we didn't have that information before.
What do you need to know? You need the location of the land?
Location of the land, and if you have any sort of price or cost estimate on it, that would be helpful too.
I don't exactly know who owns the land. I was told that a lady that owns the land was probably thinking about selling the land.
If you know where the land is, what the address is, or if you have a parcel number for it, get that to me. I can find it on the tax assessor. I can get a cost estimate from them. And it would just be a very high cost.
I'll work through Sarah here and get you that information.
Okay. We can bring that in here. Again, I said that would be a change, but not much of a change because really we already recommended that parks be developed on the northern portion of the county. We just made that as an abstract recommendation because we don't have at the time we didn't have a specific area targeted.
So when you have a park, like Laurel Run, I know you lock in at night.
Mhm.
Do you lock St. Clair?
Yes, sir, we do.
So if we had one over there, what is your opinion of having a park over there?
Just my opinion, especially if you want to have a restroom or something in, if you don't lock them up overnight, you'll receive vandalism and you'll receive damage from it. If it's just would be open 24/7, and that's basically like St. Clair. It's still free access. You can still walk into the park, use the playground equipment, use the shelters. But overnight, we always lock the
Would that
restrooms
have
up.
to be overseen by somebody that works for the park, under your supervision, or could somebody, in the community assume that role?
That would probably be something that the mayor would probably have to make a decision on, something like that, and that would probably have to come from the mayor on that
Okay.
to see which way that he would want to lean with it. But that would just be my suggestion, would be that, they would have to have somebody, and basically what you're gonna have to look for too is you're gonna have to have someone that's, gonna be able to keep them clean and, to take care of them. So,
Why don't you and I get together sometime and ride over there somewhere?
be more than happy to.
Okay.
You just let me know ahead of time and I'll make schedule for it.
Will do.
Be more than happy to go with you.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect, yeah, and just let me know as soon as you can, where that
Yeah.
parcel is, and I'll get that added in here. When I say added, we're not gonna do a concept for it or anything, we would just add it to this list of high priority, recommendations.
Okay, I understand.
That can purchase.
We have several, excuse me, Commissioner, Chairman, we have several acres at, Laurel Run that probably could be utilized for camping. Did you say that it would pay to, apply toward that?
That is actually one of the things that was targeted here as a camping area, right?
He's
We
going
got it.
Yeah, well,
But if you had camping, how's that,
that's what
the
I want to
roads keeping the
discuss.
park locked at night? I mean, camping, most people want to stay overnight.
Yeah, that's why I was going out there.
You would, if we ever get that far down the road, you would have to look like I've seen some, like if somebody's got camping access, you'd have to have a program gate or something where your campers would have access to be able to come and go.
We discussed it a couple of years ago, didn't we, Jeff? About, the camping up there on the bathrooms and so forth. We just kicked it around a little bit.
Yeah.
So we could apply some of this money toward that.
That was just
Say
something
nothing.
I thought was, something I thought would be successful. Looking at it from 30,000 feet view, I don't know the detail, what you'd have to get into.
Mr. Hill, do you need, from this committee, do you need a recommendation that we adopt the 10-year plan to, and with that recommendation, it be forwarded to the county commission?
That is my understanding.
Okay,
You said in April this month.
Correct.
okay. Do we have a motion to approve the 10-year plan that Mr. Hill has presented, to recommend to take it to the full commission?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that this committee recommend to the county commission regular meeting that we adopt this plan.
I have a motion that the committee recommends the 10-year plan by Commissioner Clontz. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, then we'll discuss it.
Okay. I have a second by Commissioner Alice. Okay. Open for discussion now.
All those in favor?
Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Anybody opposed? Likewise. Okay. Okay.
Or
Now
won't
for
be,
discussion.
okay, there won't be no money attached to this when we approve it full body, correct?
Nope, no money. No money. This plan itself, the cost of developing this plan, actually mostly came from a grant through this to the state as well. There was a small match that the county and cities paid, but it was mostly grant funded as well. So there's the only money that's on the table with this plan is at this point is money that you could potentially receive down the road.
Good deal.
Okay. Any more discussion or questions?
Will the full commission have an opportunity to review this plan before they're presented and asked to approve it?
That's the idea, and that's why it's almost finished right now, the beginning of the month, so that we have the opportunity to have a more full review process. So yes.
It will be something, that's why I was asking before what he had for the full commission, because that will be mailed out along with the resolution.
Okay.
Well, now I will say that there will not be hard copies mailed to each commissioner. I don't
But
want to
you
give
will
you that
have something
impression.
for us.
I will have
to
some.
give.
I will have hard copies to give you for the commission
Okay.
meeting. But there will be digital copies that will be available for their review before the meeting, so they will have time to look at it, so that it's not a surprise.
Can we have
Okay.
sort of those to put it on our iPads?
You mean Nancy?
Nancy, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
I do that all the time, every day.
I'm not sure. Can this be loaded on their iPads? Or
Sure.
so there's no way you could just give us a printout of your PowerPoint presentation?
I mean, this isn't the PowerPoint presentation that I have for you right now. This is the actual plan.
Okay.
Um,
Can that be printed and then we can pass it out with a resolution?
I mean, there will be hard copies that will be
But
there
it
during
won't
the
be there till
resolution.
that night, right?
Right.
They
Right.
normally receive a pack. The resolutions due on the 8th, or what is Monday's date? And along with the resolution is what they're approving, so they have time to look at that.
We can have before the meeting.
Ms. Davis?
Yeah, whatever you all need, whatever you think is best.
Is it
It's just-
online?
It's, I mean, not yet, it will be. I mean, the point is to have the plan open for public access, like, as soon as it's adopted.
Would, Ms. Davis, would that resolution, would that be something that you could prepare on behalf of the committee?
Yes,
So
we'll
it's a
prepare it
mistake.
here,
Yeah.
but I would like to have something to attach with it, so everybody
Okay.
can look at it.
Sure,
prior
as far as
to.
hard copy plans, I mean, this plan, when you look at it in full, it's 134 pages.
Yeah,
Okay.
Which is, you know, I'm not discouraging you from printing it, but when we provide you the final hard copies, under our contract, we do provide hard copies, and those hard copies are not just printed on paper, they're printed and bound, and, you know, they have a nice clear cover and back, so it's a, you know, spiral bound, it's an actual, you know, document that can live, you know, in your, you know, county building and county courthouses and city halls, so that you all have that available for your legislative body and the public. But you know, ultimately for the commission meeting, as far as attaching to the resolution, you know, I don't know that you want to provide that many 135-page documents, but that is
Can
all
you-
up to your
Can you just
discretion.
provide a short 3 or 4 page synopsis?
Me personally, I think a thumb drive or a hard drive CD would be sufficient. But also maybe for the public, if we had a paper, you know, for the people that maybe don't have access to a hard drive and stuff, at least they would be one paper copy that the public could look at.
There will be once the plan is adopted, and when at the meeting itself, there will be printed and bound plans available.
Okay.
So those will be, you know, printed, bound, clear back, clear cover, black back, like a, you know, full professional finish thing. I wish I wish that I could have had that with me today, but there's still steps in the process that need to happen before.
We appreciate you
If we approve
doing
it,
the presentation and everything.
if it's approved by the full body, say on building new shelters at Laurel Run, when could we proceed with that?
Well, when the grants are available, which we
When
don't,
will that be?
we don't know yet. They're very tight-lipped there. We talk to them all the time, but it should be, these grants are available every 2 years. So 2020 was the last one, so 2022, this year, there should be another round of grants available. Now, once you apply for the grant and you are awarded the grant, there's usually a delay of several months before you can get under contract and get started on actual construction. But that is the general time frame.
So there's no money right now to be spent even after it's adopted with full body.
Not this month per se.
Okay. Okay, if we can, I guess, move along, we will go to, number 6. That's the Laurel Run Stream Bank Erosion, Mr. Young.
I'm sorry, Jeff, I think we need a decision today by the committee.
Yeah, if you're gonna recommend.
To,
Did we vote?
Did I do that?
We did, we voted.
You
voted
on
it.
But I still think that the full body ought to be able to see what we're gonna be voting upon, and maybe get a copy of the budget also.
We could certainly provide them a digital copy to review. There's no problem with that. Or if you all feel like it's best to print them out for them to review, you can do that as well. That's at your discretion.
Can you email
I'm
that
so
as a
sorry.
PDF?
Yeah, I can email it as a PDF.
We did vote, we voted before we had the discussion. I guess that's where usually when we finish the discussion, we
Okay.
take the vote. That's where I'm confused. I'm
I
so
thought
sorry.
he voted to discuss it.
Okay, okay. Well, I guess I got confused too. So do we have a recommendation
How many people?
to forward
We
this
should.
on
Survey, one of
to
like
the
600
full
something.
committee?
Yeah, 640.
You need to let them know that.
Yeah.
So many people.
Yeah, and
No, I think
Just-
church and cook because they got kids.
Okay,
But
okay.
I looked over the budget, I don't have any problems. I
He-
don't see anything in my.
He said he could email it as a PDF to
oh,
everybody.
absolutely.
Yes, now it's not good.
I can send it to anyone as a PDF.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms.
I can get it out to all the
Appreciate you
commissioners.
Yeah, there's no problem with that.
Okay,
That's no problem at all. I mean, that's what this is. This is just a PDF. Like, I'm happy to share this.
so I'll just email it to everyone.
That's gonna make sense.